Welcome to Below the Surface. I'm Paul Balsam. Before I became a fractional CMO in the water industry, I spent over a decade owning and running a water tech company. That experience is the reason I started the show, to have the kinds of conversations I'd wish I had access to when I was in the seat. This is the podcast for water industry professionals who want to think differently about how this industry grows, communicates, and competes. If that's you, you're in the right place. I am here with Alex Mason today, and Alex is a UK-based recruiter focusing on the water industry. You know who's hiring and who's bringing in what types of roles and things like that. But first, can you walk me through what your role is? How did you get here? How did you get into the water industry and those sorts of things?
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate that, Paul. So initially, I didn't go to university to be a recruiter in water. I'll be honest. It wasn't something that, I suppose was the top of the list. However, when I left university, I decided I want to go into recruitment. My old company decided that water was an area of growth for them, and that wanted me to do. And very quickly, I did sort of realize that I really enjoyed the sector. I liked the people within it. Um, Although have gone on to work with various sectors with different teams and people that I've managed and things like that over the years, I've always stuck with water and I've always been very keen to do so over the last 6-7 years, and recently founded my own recruitment company, which is going to be purely dedicated to the water sector. But what I mean by that is working with technology providers and companies within the water sector globally. So that's the US or in Europe or even over to Asia. So I've enjoyed the people, I've enjoyed the technologies, and I found myself now being really, really interested in it and keen to stay in it for the duration of my career, which, yeah, if you'd asked 21-year-old me, probably would would not have thought so. But yeah, I'm happy to be here, to be honest.
What makes water different from other sectors you could recruit for?
I think, well, first of all, I think one thing that's really, really obvious is it's an industry that is so important to everyone in the world. That can just be not just your Yorkshire Waters or your municipalities. We're talking about all of the different things that it touches, and that is not going to change. It shifts. There's different parts of the world have different pressures on it, whether it be food and beverage or the semiconductor industry, which is a big booming thing in the US, or mining. It touches so many things, but it is a necessity for everyone in the world. So it has that luxury of being an industry which isn't going anywhere. But unfortunately, what it doesn't have compared to maybe industries like defense or life sciences is those kind of spike bumps and these sort of spike boosts in need and money that perhaps they have. So if you look at like cybersecurity or defense right now, or life sciences during COVID, the amount of money and need and resources being poured into those was so much more than water. So it kind of pluses and minuses as an industry to work in, but it's nice to know sometimes that it's something that is ever evolving and ever needed, and has people who are passionate about it staying within it.
Tell me about your company. When did you decide to launch your own firm? And what gap are you trying to fill in the water recruitment market?
Well, it's interesting. It's not very old, so we've been going about 2 months now. Company's called Hydrec. It happened because I'd been leading a team in another business, and my team included automation and life sciences and defense, and we were doing all kinds of different things, and that had been the case for a few years now, working with different industries. And as I mentioned before, I really enjoy the water sector. And I decided to have a change of role and a change of what I wanted to do out of it. I wanted to just basically be able to deliver the best service I could, spend more time speaking to people, because I did feel sometimes that I maybe wasn't giving the best service I could because I was taken up with all these other jobs that I had alongside recruitment. So I wanted to create a company that could just deliver very high quality service to great companies within the water sector. And my plans of growth going forward will be to hire only those that are in the water sector, that are looking to work with the companies and the great people within it, and deliver really good service and really specialized knowledge.
As a recruiter, particularly in an industry that's pretty tight like water, one of your primary modes is just being a networker, right? It's becoming close with leadership or
Yeah.
investors of a lot of these businesses. And the thing I think that's interesting about your perspective potentially is that you're getting this like real-time market information all the time as almost like an investigator. What are you seeing right now in terms of hiring activity? Would you say water companies are expanding, consolidating? What's the overall temperature of the market?
Well, I mean, when you talk about investigator, it depends. Sometimes that investigation is more, more like than others. But what I will say is that I think it's very hard to give an overall temperature across the globe, and also municipal differs to industrial, industrial differs to commercial. So it's very difficult to give a one answer because the water sector is so diverse and varied. I think what I will say is I think that I speak for everyone in recruitment and everyone who has been in hiring that 2025 has been not the easiest year. Certainly, if you look at the UK, the AMP has been somewhat delayed and maybe hasn't got going in the way that perhaps some would have thought it would by now. So you speak to like UK sales directors and who work in municipalities, they work in aeration or they work in pumps or whatever. They may be a bit frustrated because the projects that they thought might have come off haven't yet. But also as well, you mentioned their consolidation. What has been really interesting is these big players grouping together. And I think when I first started in recruitment, it was when GE Water became Suez and Evoqua was born out of Siemens. And now you've got, Veolia and Suez merging together. You've got Xylem, Evoqua. You obviously have Solenis have now have merged with and acquired NCH, which is Chemakqua, which is a very recent one. Grundfos is buying companies left, right, and centre. So you've got these sort of 4, 5, 6 really, really big companies that are offering pretty much everything in the market almost. They're able to cover most technologies and getting into smart water as well. So there is these really, really big brand bring player companies out there now, which have good points and bad points. But there's some really, really that could end up being a bit of a bully, these companies, and being pretty large. But at the same time, that's also exciting because it allows other companies to reach their potential, which they may not have been able to without their help.
In what ways, if any, are you seeing those big companies kind of throw their weight around in the recruiting market?
Well, I mean, one thing that's happened is one thing that does happen is it breeds uncertainty within their own workforce. So what you have there is that they'll have candidates and people that may be a little bit nervous if they were recently acquired or recently merged, and maybe they're a Vocra sales manager, but they're now going to be reporting to a Xylem sales director, and they may be nervous that makes their job at risk. So they may be more actively looking. And there also will be inevitably waves of redundancies within these businesses. Some have already happened, of course. That is the case with all companies that go through mergers like this. And so that also means that there is a flood of really good people available, which will then mean that can create recruitment change or recruitment strategy change because of this new availability of really high quality people from a company like Xylem, where they're very well trained, they've had experience with lots of different technologies. So that can change the recruitment market because other companies might go, you know what, we weren't going to hire, but if Xylem's just made some redundancies, for example, then maybe we snap them up whilst we can. So that can change what other companies do based on decisions by the larger players.
Amidst all this M&A and all this acquisition going on from the big companies in the industry, are they still hiring, or are they trying to assess their current workforce and put the resources they have where they need to go? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think all big companies are always hiring. If you were to go on the website of any of the big brand companies, if you were to go to a trade show, the one with the great booths, the ones that have got the banners on the roof, all those companies. If you go on the website, they're hiring. These companies are too big to not need to. Um, Obviously, some go on hiring freezes of growth, but they still need to replace people that leave. But what I will say is generally there will be strategies in place for hiring before acquisition or when they go through integrations. But generally, in my experience, there isn't a huge amount of change initially to the first year, 18 months. There'll be a lot of people that may be on retention bonuses or they'll go through integration plans where They work out which teams from each divisions and companies are best suited, and then maybe people leaving and a new hiring plans are developed, almost delayed down the line after, not sort of straight away they go out and get as many people as possible.
Are you seeing any trends in terms of what types of roles are really hot right now? Like what skill sets? Is it everybody investing in AI, for example? Like is there a big trend right now going on in hiring?
One thing I get a lot of is asking about the UK because of the AMP coming. So which is a very large investment round of by municipalities in their infrastructure in the UK. And that means that a lot of companies are looking to hire UK sales managers, UK MDs, and then it trickles down from that as well is service engineers, project engineers, engineering staff to go with it. And there will be a boom in the UK, or there should have been already, arguably, in the need for staff and competitiveness of staff, which pushes up salaries. It makes very difficult to hire in the UK because if you're hiring for one company, all of their competitors are potentially looking for the same thing. And on the flip side, if you talk about AI, as you mentioned there, and smart technologies and water, that certainly has been the trend for a little while now, even over the last 5 to 10 years with smart meterings come in. The likes of companies like a Badger Meter, for example, have done really, really well because smart metering's grown. And then now looking at it as more as like smart software platforms and things like that are being integrated, like Xylem's View, for example. They're seeing a growth there as well. But I would say as well, there is a shortage of the right talent because these are skill sets and these are people that have not been needed before. So software architects, AI engineers, these sort of things have not ever really been a need in the water sector. They've been used in other industries. And the water sector is not used to paying the salaries and the compensations and the locations that the likes of software engineers are and the way they work. So that's a very difficult thing right now for companies who are traditional water companies pivoting to smart technologies to deal with.
So you've got these companies and you're the one kind of sitting in the middle trying to make the connections between I've got this big water company that's expanding maybe into software or AI of some kind, and you have to go make those connections with people traditionally outside of the water industry. How does that work? Are there people actively looking? Are you making connections at shows or things like that? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, when it comes to outside of the industry, that's when you look to um, you start with the places that are famous for it. So if you're talking about software, the Googles or things like that, but that's when it becomes very difficult to hire them into the water industry due to compensation or things like that. One thing we can do and have done successfully is when there's been a growth of a new technology in an industry, and especially from a sales side, rather than looking at what they're selling, look at how they're selling it. So, for example, if you look at smart metering, for example, a lot of smart metering candidates have been successful from pumps or from other industries that are selling to the same end users, the same suppliers, the same buyers, whether it be municipalities, utilities, whatever. But it's retraining them to sell that product and to sell that service rather than having someone who's come from selling in a completely different industry and having to make those connections and understand how utilities work and understand the timelines and everything like that. So he's looking at the shortest kind of learning curve possible. And that's how we can obviously help with providing a range of people from different experiences.
Outside of software development and engineering in general, are there any types of roles or departments that you're seeing that are particularly in demand right now?
You know what's funny? I was speaking to John Grant the other day about this, who's technical operations services, and he works with operators. And this is not really my game. It's not what I do a lot of. Is kind of plant operators in the US. But obviously, there's some people call it the grey wave, where there's been a lot of people retiring or kind of getting a little bit older in the industry without the junior staff coming through. Because wastewater treatment is not the sexiest industry in the world. There are a lot of cooler things that you want to do when you're 19, 20. And also, as well, it's struggling with how to best get those people involved, get them excited, get them interested, and whether that be going through setting up apprenticeships and training plans and training events to get those people even thinking about water, creating content like we're doing right now, is to people to actually engage with the water sector over, you know, these more exciting electric cars or whatever it is that's kind of always in the media. And then also as well is understanding how to best reach them, because we met on LinkedIn initially, or we were put together on LinkedIn at least. LinkedIn is a great platform, and LinkedIn is a brilliant way for many people to meet each other virtually, but also WhatsApp, Indeed, TikTok, Instagram, all these platforms we wouldn't typically think about. You know, we wouldn't think about TikTok when it comes to recruitment in water. I certainly don't use it, and neither does Hydrec. However, if you're trying to reach a certain demographic that aren't on LinkedIn or aren't engaged with the water sector already, you need to use these different platforms, these different ways of delivering information to get them to think, oh, well, maybe the water industry is for me. Maybe I'll not go into this or not go into that they would naturally think of. So that's been a real problem, and that's something that needs to be solved with water, is get the out there that it's a great career and a great opportunity.
So obviously you're in the UK, as we've discussed, and I am US based. Can you tell me your perception of the differences between our markets? How does the industry on the whole compare to what you know of the US market? What about talent availability, company structures, those sorts of things?
I mean, obviously, it's very hard to compare somewhere as small as the UK to the US when it comes to size and availability. I think it depends on what part of the industry you're talking about. So, for example, if you're talking about the chemical sales reps in the US, that's a great market for recruitment. And that's a great market because there's always great account managers, great sales reps, sales managers are in demand. And there's some brilliant companies out there: Chemtree, Croft, Nalco, and there's loads of great regional businesses as well that maybe only cover the Midwest or they only cover the Southeast, but they offer fantastic commission packages, or, you know, really look after their staff. They offer good training. And I think the US, there's more availability of options like that, where you may have been trained at Nalco, but really like to be left alone and have that hunter mentality. And there's some great opportunities for you in the US to kind of do those sort of roles. Whereas in the UK, because we're so much smaller, you may have two guys cover the entire country, whereas you may have one per state. So it's a different mentality, because it's based regionally with some industries, where others you may cover the whole of the US because you're doing large municipal projects or large treatment equipment, mobile systems, that sort of thing. So it's very hard to say the differences, because the industry is so disparate, and each individual section is set up differently for its needs.
Is there any interplay between the two countries in terms of hiring? So are there UK-based companies in the industry that are looking to the US for talent, or vice versa?
Absolutely. I mean, there's obviously step. So US companies wanting to make their step into the UK, and vice versa. So that's a common conversation that we have: is how do we make our first hire in the UK? How do we make our first hire in the US? And there's some great organizations and great partners that we can use to help with that. US, a great partner would be like the Water Council, help European companies come to the US all the time. When it comes to hiring directly from there, it does happen, but I would say there's not enough of a skills deficit between the two that can't be found in Europe versus the US. So, and also as well, relocations and things like that. You know, we're here to make life easy and make life as easy as possible. So if we can avoid relocating someone from California to Manchester, we will do, because it's a very big difference. It rains a lot more. I tell you that for nothing. So yeah, we don't regularly get asked to go and find people from the US to bring here, but the exchange of information and kind of being able to move into each other's markets is quite regular, yeah.
Obviously, we both like the water industry. We're both in it, and we plan on staying. So if you were to, from a hiring perspective and an employability perspective, advise somebody who is early in their career, who wants to build a valuable skill set for this industry, what would you tell them?
Wow. Well, it's very difficult to say, because it depends on if they're on a technical or they're wanting to go on a commercial route. I think if they're going down a commercial route, the advice will be exactly the same as we would give to recruiters, as we give to anyone in a commercial position, where it's meet as many people as you can, learn your industry as well as you can, and either pick to stay in a technology and become like the go-to guy for UV and work for a Trojan or work for a Wedeco and learn from the best technology. Or if you're in municipal, make sure you're getting exposure to aeration, you get exposure to mixers, you get exposure to MBRs, and you're learning as much as you can within that niche. What I would say is, as much as it isn't as much of a stigma anymore to jump ship regularly, I think it's really good still to have good stints with companies, show that you can grow and develop within one company rather than moving every year. Because I think there's still a certain amount of stigma, certainly within more traditional businesses, around people that do so. And I think other than that, just be really curious, be a part of your market, be a part of the industry, and get involved with all the great initiatives that are part of water. Because if the enthusiasm will show when you want to advance your career and you want to meet new people. That enthusiasm will naturally come out, and people will realize that and feed off that.
I have just a couple more questions for you. One is, so I've been on the hiring side before, running a company in this industry, and I've talked to other company leaders and things about this topic. And what would you tell a business leader that is just hell-bent on hiring themselves, regardless of the role? Why would you tell them that working with a recruiter is going to benefit them in terms of the quality of the hire that they're going to make?
Well, first of all, I thought you were saying well, he was one of those leaders that only wants to hire someone who's a carbon copy of themselves. I thought that's what you meant initially. But no, going, nothing wrong with going it alone. I think you've got to up the fact of how there's various elements that you've got to weigh up when it comes to that. One is, do you know everyone that you think you know the top people in the industry? Are you well networked enough? Do you know enough of the right people that can advise you and put you in contact with the best people in the industry? That's number one, and that is the case for some. Some people are known. I know them. You know them. Everyone knows them, and that's great. But also, you've got to think about the time element. It is time-consuming and frustrating hiring, even if it's something that seems fairly simple. And that's the case whether have been doing it a long time or not, and that goes for me every day. And whether you want that added stress in your life or you want it taken away and mitigated by someone like myself. On that, as well as you get, and working with a recruiter, someone experienced like myself who knows the industry, you also get another perspective. You will also get anecdotal experience from me doing it before with other companies, and that advice that goes a long way. And also it gives you a degree of separation. So, for example, you might want to hire a bloke that you've known a long time, or a lady that you've known for 15 years, but you don't know how to bring it up and don't know how to keep it professional and keep it, a degree of separation required to look at it objectively. That can also be provided by using a third party. And that's happened to us fairly recently, where the successful candidate was someone that was already fairly admired by the hiring manager, but he needed to keep it objective and look at other people and not just have the blinkers on. And it meant that they were able to have a great process and look at some great people that they hadn't thought of, and it actually changed really what the role ended up being, and it was very helpful.
It's good advice. I hadn't thought about all of those, so I really appreciate that. I have one more question for you. For water companies that struggle to attract top talent, what are they getting wrong? Like, what separates the companies that can recruit great people from those that can't?
Well, you know what? I think it's down to marketing. I think I'm going to quote my old marketing director at Charles Morris, Chris Holland from Kitto. Recruitment is a marketing job, and he's doing that because he works in recruitment marketing. However, I think it's exactly the same for any company that is looking to hire. And what I mean by that is, if you go on your website as a business, that website is serving so many different purposes. You are trying to attract customers. You're trying to show off what you do. You're trying to have all the legal stuff in there. You're trying to tell you where you live, where the business is, where everything like that. There's so many things that, as a business, you're trying to convey to the people that are out there. One of which is, and might well be, to come and work for you. But it's very difficult to make sure that your marketing is great or your employer branding is engineered for that. And also as well, the employer branding needs to change whether you're hiring a CIO or you're hiring a service tech, or you're hiring grads. So I think it's really important if you are struggling to hire and you are struggling to attract talent and you're not sure why, take a step back and have a look at what to attract others. Ask someone else that's maybe out of the industry, ask someone else who is a different age or a different demographic to yourself and go, does this look like a company that I would want to work for? And if not, why? Some companies do it brilliantly. Some companies have developed a really great reputation for different reasons. Some companies have great reputation due to their products being fantastic, or they look after their staff extremely well. A lot of big corporates do brilliantly. They're well known for having great career opportunities and, and products. But at the same time, some startups are doing it the best because they have a super exciting product. They're in a really cool place. They have great offices. They have a diverse team. They have people from different nationalities working all around the globe. They have opportunities for travel. It depends on who you're trying to attract. And I think it doesn't have to be a one size fits all, but make sure that at least if you're going on a hunt for some certain thing, you're able to articulate why is that a great opportunity for them, not just why we're great. That's the most important thing. Think about it from the audience that you're trying to get to, and that will help massively.
That was a great summary, and probably the biggest takeaway for me is how holistic you have to approach your corporate image and consider recruiting and hiring in that whole formula. Alex, this has been really valuable and super interesting for people that want to connect with you, whether they're hiring or looking for opportunities. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, on LinkedIn, email, whatever, you can send me a postcard. I don't care. If you're interested, you work in water, you want to speak about it, how you want some advice, I'm more than happy to offer any help to anyone, whether you're looking or you just want some advice, just get in touch. Hydrec will be growing. We want to be a significant player in the market. But for now, we just want to do a great job for the companies in the water sector and offer the knowledge that I've accrued over the last sort of 7, 8 years. So yeah, get in touch and I'll help any way that I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure.